It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by my friend Tom. Tom, how are you tonight, bro?
I'm doing great, Keith. We have an awesome card this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait to get into it. How you been?
I'm doing great. You know, it's just another week that we have this wonderful sport back with us in the year of 2022. And like you said, another stacked card. It feels like it might be a little bit under promoted, though, for such a good card. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just saying this, and if you check me out on Twitter, at Pickin Fights Tom, it's below. But if you check me out, like I was saying, I really feel like the UFC has not promoted cards, pay-per-views especially, but even, I mean, definitely not fight nights either. They really haven't promoted themselves as much as you would expect for a company that was, for a good while there in the pandemic, one of the very few sports on at all. So it had a lot of eyeballs. You would think they would take those people who maybe got initially interested at the beginning of the pandemic and tried to turn them into long-term fans with promotions, keeping them invested and, you know, attracting eyeballs like every other company is trying to fucking do these days. So yeah, I don't really understand why they have seemingly backtracked in terms of their promotion budget. And they're not doing press conferences as much as they would either, you know, as much as they normally do. I'm not sure if there's going to be one for this yet, but I certainly hope there is. There should be. I mean, when you have Derrick Lewis and Tai Shoey-vasa fighting each other, there's no reason why you don't do a press conference. But yeah, like the old days, they used to do multiple press conferences and they would promote it for months in advance. A lot of hype. You would see fighters going on, you know, ESPN promotions. I mean, ESPN has a vested interest in this. Why is, you know, Izzy Adesanya? Why is Robert Whittaker? Why are they not doing more press?
That's a really good question. I wonder if it's almost like the UFC thinks that this is going to do it itself. You know, we have marketable stars like Izzy and Derrick Lewis on this card. Like the fight almost sells the card almost sells itself. Or maybe they're depending on people like us to do their job for them. Who knows? I think especially with a weekend like we're about to have with sports, where it's Saturday night is UFC, Sunday is the Super Bowl. You would think that they would really be pushing it right now. Like, yo, be parked in front of your television Saturday and Sunday. But that's just not how it's going. But speaking of the Super Bowl, we have another video that just came out on our Pickin' Winners channel, right? So make sure that you like, subscribe, comment down below what you think. We have our Super Bowl coverage. You know, that's the regular Pickin' Six guys, Connor and Tyler. Then we also got Adam from Men of Order on there. I'm on that video as well. So check that out to get some Super Bowl insights, see who we're rolling with, you know, all sorts of props, spreads, totals, all that good stuff. And then check out our content over on pickinwinners.org, as well as Twitter and Instagram @_pickinwinners, and our collaborations over with menoforder.com. So with all that being said, let's dive into this card. Thanks again for joining us. We're going to start, as always, with our prelim locks. So I'll kick it off with one of mine, one that I absolutely love. She's a fighter that, you know, I've really come to know and love over you know, the past. Let's see, she's had one fight in the UFC so far, and that would be Casey O'Neill. You know, I bet all of you thought that I was going to say Roxanne Modafferi, her opponent, as I was leading into that, you know, saying someone I come to love over time. But if you've been watching long enough, you know that we don't like Roxanne around here. We always pick against her. And in this one especially, you know, Casey O'Neill is a really good all-around fighter, good, actually really impressive grappling and ground game. Her stand-up needs some work, but, you know, she's 8-0 as a professional fighter. And that stand-up seems to be getting better as every fight, you know, as she progresses in her career. And then one thing that, you know, outside of just Roxanne being Roxanne, that really stands out to me in this one is that this is Roxanne Modafferi's last fight in the UFC, most likely. You know, it's her last one on her contract. I believe she said that she's retiring after this one. I can't really see them re-signing her after this one. You know, and honestly, kudos to Roxanne. She has been around since, you know, at least fighting professionally since UFC 43. That's before the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. That's before Ronda Rousey was even in the UFC. So, you know, kudos to Roxanne, but Casey O'Neill, King Casey, she is going to, you know, potentially do very bad things to Roxanne, being that it's Roxanne's last fight. Maybe she gets a little bit wild out there, opens herself up to, you know, some mistakes by trying to really like impress everybody in her last fight and somehow manage a finish. Or she sits back, very relaxed, tries to leave this one with little to no damage, you know, just coast her way out of there. But both of those scenarios, Casey O'Neill goes home with a W. So, Tom, I'll pass it over to you for one of your prelim locks.
So if you had to pick between the two, which one do you think it is? Do you think it's going to be like a grind out decision victory, or do you think Casey O'Neill is going to be able to finish the fight?
You know, it's a really tough call, and personally, I would like to see Casey O'Neill get a finish because then that really elevates her. And Roxanne Modafferi was rocked by, who was it that Viviane Araújo? Is that who she fought
Yep.
last? So I think potentially if Casey O'Neill's stand-up game, has been progressing and progressed into this one the way that it was looking over the past couple of fights in her professional career, then, maybe you do actually get a finish out of Casey O'Neill on Saturday. Maybe she flexes a little bit of fight IQ, brings Roxanne down with some kind of strike to the head and then chokes her out or steals a limb. But Roxanne's not bad on the ground. So I think it'll more than likely be a grind out 3-round decision win. I'd like to see a victory by finish for Casey O'Neill, though.
Okay, yeah, you really threw me for a loop there. You kind of talked the entire time about a finish, and we're like, yeah, so I think, Casey O'Neill's going to grind it out for a decision.
Yeah.
Okay. I also think Casey O'Neill's going to grind it out for a decision. I mean, Roxanne Modafferi, she's defensively sound on the ground, like you said. She's a black belt in her own right. Casey O'Neill, also a black belt, but I think Casey O'Neill's just ultimately going to be hungrier. She's obviously fighting for more. She's getting better at every step. And, she's working at a 10th planet, but she's also at Extreme Couture. So she has no shortage of really good training partners and training coaches. For somebody who's 24 years old, I think she's, still a little bit early for her prime, training at the gym she is, on the win streak she is, and she's getting finishes too. So I don't think she's going to finish Roxanne. I think Roxanne is a little bit too experienced for her, or to be able to put herself in positions where she's going to end up being finished. I think her, defensive jiu-jitsu is just good enough to where it's going to grind it out. I think Casey O'Neill is definitely going to be the more aggressive fighter. I think she's going to spend a lot of time in the top position. I think it's going to be a 30-27, potentially a 30-26. But at the end of the day, I don't think Roxanne's going to have all that much motivation. Like you said, she's retiring. This is her last fight. I think she wants to go out. I think, hey, there is a possibility where if she's on the ground and she knows she's retiring, maybe, hey, there's no reason why I need to take all this damage, and maybe she taps out her. Not saying she would give up or anything like that, but, the motivation to stay hungry to win the fight may not be there when it's your last fight. And, do I really want to absorb all of this damage for what potential reason? So, We'll see what happens, but I do think Roxanne's going to hang tough in there. I don't think she's going to want to be finished, and I think she's going to go out on her horse, which good for her. And a lot of people have been talking about how she's had a phenomenal career. But I don't know particularly what they're looking at to describe phenomenal. But yeah, she's been around for a long time, and I guess there's something to be said for that. But yeah, Casey O'Neill gets a decision here, and I think we talked about this one a little bit too long.
It's okay. Speed it up with your next one then.
For my next prelim lock, I'm going Ronnie Lawrence versus Mana Martinez. Ronnie Lawrence, he has a really underrated stand-up game, and he's had a lot of stand-up or takedown success when he's using it. His wrestling is really good. His fight IQ is really good. He's one of those guys that we talk about who can use increasingly good striking to rely on his wrestling game, and he has really good IQ to know when to use each. Don't over pursue a potential knockout. Take what's given to you. Don't put yourself in bad positions pursuing like a takedown or an over aggressive ground and pound situation. Mana Martinez, he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. He likes to play on his back, and when he does, but typically he doesn't find himself on the ground all that much. He's usually finishing fights very, very early. His most recent fight is the outlier to that rule. So it is quite possible that Mana catches Ronnie, but ultimately I think Ronnie is much better standing, not much better standing, but I think he is good enough on his feet to where he's going to be able to avoid some of Mana Martinez's bigger shots. I think he's ultimately going to take it to the ground. And I think he grinds this one out to a decision. I don't think he's going to be able to finish Mana. I think it's a little bit too high level of an opponent for him. And like I said, he likes to play off of his back. Ronnie's going to be aggressive in taking him down. So it's kind of a decent mix of opponent if you're Mana. To where at least you may not. Worst case scenario, you're on your back, which is what something you prefer to do. So I think for those reasons, Ronnie's not going to have an opportunity to finish him, but is going to win the decision.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And actually, so are the people of Tapology. They have 85% voting on Ronnie Lawrence winning by decision, and I'm sorry, winning straight up, and 78% of those votes are coming in by way of decision. So I really like that pick as well. My next prelim lock and my final prelim lock is Andrei Arlovski, and he's fighting Jared Vanderaa. I think that Andrei Arlovski over the past couple of fights, he's in his age, he's looking really good, and he's only lost to some of the best in the division, really special type guys. And Jared Vanderaa is not that type of guy. Andrei Arlovski most recently losing to Tom Aspinall, who's like one of the front runners to make his way up and win that heavyweight belt potentially. Seeing how the next couple of months shake out. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Biggie Boy, Augusto Sakai, Tai Tuivasa, who's on this card, Marcin Tybura, Francis Ngannou, Alistair Overeem back in 2016. So, but Andrei Arlovski, he is looking a lot better still. He is somehow improving. And Jared Vanderaa, he's a guy that likes to take a lot of damage in his fights. He's coming off of a 4-month resting period after his last loss, which was to Alexander Romanov. He lost that one by way of ground and pound, TKO in the second round. Took a lot of damage in that one. Really not good, for a quick turnaround. And I think one of the most important things for this one is that Andrei Arlovski can really just tee off on Jared Vanderaa if he chooses to, and just piece him up with a stand-up game. But Jared Vanderaa, he also has really bad takedown defense, and Andrei Arlovski can choose to expose that if he doesn't feel like standing up, or if the stand-up game isn't really working out for him too well. So definitely rolling with Andrei Arlovski here. I think this is going to be a very impressive win for him, and shows everybody that he can still do it at, how old is he again? Let me check this. 43. Yeah, 43. It's impressive. I think it'll look really good for a 43-year-old.
Arguably more impressive than Tom Brady?
Nah, maybe. I don't know.
It certainly takes more athleticism.
Oh, yeah, certainly. You're out there grinding it out for 15 straight minutes, not just throwing a ball. But
go out there and be, the number 15 ranked heavyweight in the world in competition. I think Andrei Arlovski is going to win this one. Ultimately, I think he's going to be the guy who's going to be able to dictate where the fight takes place. So if he doesn't like, the look he's getting on the feet, he can take it down. Like you said, Jared Vanderaa has terrible takedown defense. He also has only a 39% striking defense. So, it's not like he's much better on the feet in terms of his defensive ability. And Andrei Arlovski, he's had chin issues in the past, but not lately, and not by anyone who's not really good. His most recent loss in his last 5 is to Tom Aspinall. And, look, we have Tom Aspinall who thinks he could be a top guy in the division, and he's going to fight for that later. So I think Andrei Arlovski, he has been more patient, more poised. He's more experienced. And, I think ultimately he's going to get this one done. And he's going to prove to us that, age is just a number.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely rolling with Andrei Arlovski here. You got another one for us?
Yeah, my final pick is going to be Alex Perez over Matt Schnell. And this is simply because Alex Perez is better than Matt Schnell in just about every area. Alex Perez, he is, better with his ground and pound lately. And it's constantly improving. At 29 years old, he's just now entering his prime. He's going to be the shorter man here, but he's really good at the, getting takedowns. And Matt Schnell is not known for his chin. He has actually a pretty bad chin. He's coming off a loss to Rogerio Bontorin via decision. Before that, he's got a loss to Alexandre Pantoja. In between those, he won a split decision over Tyson Nam that really could have went either way. So Matt Schnell has just not really turned out to be the fighter that we thought he was or could be. And Alex Perez is looking like he might be that guy. His most recent loss is a year ago to Deiveson Figueiredo. And you're going to forgive that loss because Deiveson Figueiredo is fighting to be the best flyweight in the world. Three wins before that. All by different ways. He's got a submission in there. He's got a TKO victory. He's got a decision in there. So Alex Perez can do it all. And I think in this one, he is going to finish Matt Schnell via TKO.
Yeah, Matt Schnell is definitely not the guy that, Game of Thrones fans would say the prince that was promised. He's just not that guy. We definitely thought Matt Schnell could have been that dude, but he's just not that guy, pal. Wow, excuse me. One guy to look out for on this, he's actually, excuse me, wow. He's actually opening up the prelims is a fellow named Blood Diamond. He's somebody to look out for on this one. I don't really, I don't want to pick him as a prelim lock or anything. I'm not saying that by any means. But he's definitely a lock to watch. He's a guy that trains with, Izzy, Volk, all those fellows out of City Kickboxing, a fellow from New Zealand, Mike Mathetha, and,
Mike Mathetha.
Mathetha, yeah.
It's Masessa if you have a lisp.
Oh, okay. Mathetha. That's a good one. Mike Mathetha. So Yeah, this guy Blood Diamond. I think we'll be hearing him get called that more over the years than his actual name. And at City Kickboxing, apparently they refer to him as Black Jelly because he moves really interesting, really differently. And he's someone that I'm looking forward to seeing fight. Only 3-0 professionally, but maybe 4-0 after Saturday. So we'll move our way up onto the main card. Now we've got a pretty good fight, in my opinion. We've got Nasrat Haqparast versus Bobby Green. I am taking Bobby Green in this one. Bobby Green is another guy that, he's been around for a while, but he's still looking very impressive. He had a really memorable fight against Rafael Fiziev. And in that one, his head movement was really good. He was throwing a lot of nice strikes. One of the only reasons that he lost, at least according to the judges table, is because he kept shaking his head no. They took that as a sign of something negative happening. Also knocked out Raging Al Iaquinta back in November. That was upsetting for longtime MMA fans. But, like I said, he looks very good lately on his feet. And Nasrat really has no ground game to speak of. So he's going to have to fight Bobby Green standing up. This is a well-made matchup by the boys over at the UFC. Nasrat Haqparast was walked down for 3 rounds and taken down actually a few times by Dan Hooker. So if Dan Hooker can walk down Nasrat Haqparast, take him down, basically do whatever he wanted with him for 3 weeks, and then Bobby Green is stepping in, who is just an incredible boxer. He's going to piece up Nasrat Haqparast over 3 rounds, probably win by decision, maybe a close decision, but definitely win by decision. What do you think about that one, Tom?
Yeah, I think this one ends up on the ground, which is ultimately why Bobby Green is going to get the decision here. I think it's going to not get finished, obviously. Duh, Jesus. Ultimately, Nasrat has a weakness with his takedown defense, and Bobby Green takes down a lot of guys. He's beat, in almost every fight he's been in, he's gotten at least one takedown. And we're talking across, a few different divisions. He's beaten Eric Koch, he beat Eric Koch, but he's got a takedown over him. Drakkar Close takes down Francisco Trinaldo, Clay Guida, Lando Venata, Alan Patrick, Thiago Moises. The only 2 fights he hasn't landed a takedown were Rafael Fiziev and Al Iaquinta. Rafael Fiziev, hey, that's a really close fight. He's a really good fighter, Rafael Fiziev. We're talking about him potentially, challenging for a belt in the very near future. So, that's almost forgivable, I guess. You get that. But he also landed 143 strikes. So he did outland Rafael Fiziev. And he knocked out Al Iaquinta. As Bobby Green's getting older, he seems to be getting better. Nasrat Haqparast is not, kind of back to what you were saying about the prince that was promised. Nasrat Haqparast hasn't really turned out to be the guy that we expected or hoped that he was going to be. And I think he's going to run into a surging Bobby Green here. Who's really good at everything that Nasrat isn't. I don't think there's much that Nasrat has that can overwhelm Bobby Green. Like, I think he will land some of the bigger shots here. And I think Bobby Green will leave himself just open for those shots, but ultimately will be durable enough to fight through them or take down Nasrat if he gets himself into a situation. And one thing you want to remember is Nasrat is 26, and in his last fight, he had just lost his mom, so it was very emotional for him. So it probably wasn't the best representation of who he is. If he can come back and train and maybe and have a little bit more of a focused camp and still continue and improve at a young age, if he can win here, that's a statement for who Nasrat Haqparast could be moving forward. However, a big loss here could mean that he could potentially be looking at being cut from the UFC. I mean, when you look, he's just hasn't impressed. He would be on a 2-fight losing streak. Wins over Rafa Garcia and Alexander Munoz, but those date back to 2020. And then he has a loss to Drew Dober. So you could be looking at potentially being cut from the UFC if he loses this. So this is a really impactful fight for Nasrat, but I think Bobby Green's ultimately going to grind it to a decision.
Yeah, just an interesting stat for Nasrat Haqparast coming into this fight. He was a pretty moderately heavy favorite in his 5 previous fights before Dan Hooker. And then against Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, he's becoming a bigger underdog again. So, it's just interesting to see this swing that Nasrat Haqparast is taking in everybody's eyes, not just of fans, but also of Vegas. And, fighting Drew Dober, he was actually a minus 350 favorite. So, just an interesting little little tidbit there. We're going to move on up to the next fight now, and we've got Kyler Phillips versus Marcelo Rojo. I know who I'm rolling with in this one, but you can kick it off on this one, Tom.
Yeah, so Kyler Phillips, he lost a majority decision to Julian Paiva. And I think there's a lot of ways that you can go back and look at that fight and score for Kyler Phillips. I think he really should be 10-1. He's very good on the feet, and he's got really good BJJ, and he's really got good wrestling as well. He's kind of, the epitome of a very, very well-rounded fighter. Rojo, he's kind of has a suspect ground game at times, and both of these guys have shown that they don't really have some of the best cardio in the UFC either. I think Phillips is gonna, have kind of an easy night if he chooses the ground game. If he decides to stand and strike with Marcelo Rojo, I think it's going to be a lot more challenging for him. Not saying that he's bad, but that is Rojo's strength, and you would just be going in there and fighting, fire with fire. And I think there's a much easier path, and I think the better fight IQ path is to go in there, take Marcelo Rojo down, have the easier night, potentially finish him with some ground and pound. So I'm going Kyler Phillips. He has an opportunity for a submission, but I think ultimately I'm going to take him for a decision here.
Yeah, I'm going with the same. I think it's important to note that Kyler Phillips did beat Song Yadong, and Song Yadong isn't really, he's pretty decent for the division. And, that was a Kyler Phillips that was more, laid back, almost more patient in the octagon. And then when he went out and fought Julian Paiva, he was very, very, all up in Paiva's face, trying to throw a lot. And he really burned himself out. And that's why I think that a lot of people have, possibly a misconception about Kyler Phillips's cardio. If he's smart on Saturday, then he won't gas out. And you could say that about a lot of fighters, but him in particular, when he gets wild, he gasses out. And, a smart Kyler Phillips is a winning Kyler Phillips. And if the Kyler Phillips that beat Song Yadong comes out on Saturday, then he's going to beat Marcelo Rojo. So, I really like Kyler Phillips in this one, but personally, I'm rolling with him to win by decision as well. So next up, we've got Jared Cannonier versus Derrick Brunson, Blonde Brunson versus a guy that used to be a heavyweight and has made his way all the way down to middleweight. I'm having sort of a tough time on this one, more because of the stylistic matchup than anything, but there's something really interesting to take into account when breaking down this fight, especially from the angle that we attack it from. Brunson has been talking about getting a title shot for basically the past 2 years. Ever since he dyed his hair and he's been on this little bit of a, sparky little hot streak. He's like, I'm getting a title shot. I'm getting one. After Cannonier, I'm going to get a title shot. He had a pretty impressive, he had a very definitive win against a wounded Darren Till. And then at the media scrum, he says he's only fighting twice more and then he's going to retire. Saying something like that on a big stage, in my opinion, is going to get you bumped out of that title contention decision, especially against a guy like Jared Cannonier, who really has the opportunity to beat Blonde Brunson, in a very impressive fashion. I think Jared Cannonier has big power in his hands, and he could potentially knock him out. I think at the very least, he's going to wound Derrick Brunson, chop away at him with light kicks or attack his body a lot. And it's going to come down to it where Derrick Brunson absolutely has to grapple and try and take down Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier's got very impressive grappling and takedown defense. And I just think that Jared Cannonier is going to pull this one out with a W by using that great striking and, not allowing Derrick Brunson to really shoot on him. So I'm rolling with Jared Cannonier in this one. Which way are you going, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going right with you. Do we think that Derrick Brunson's ground game is better than Jack Hermansson? Do we think he's better than Jack Hermansson's game? No, I don't. And, when Derrick Cannonier fought Jack Hermansson, he was able to kind of just pop up. He's got this sneaky, takedown defense. It says 62%, but it's really like 85% when you factor out how bad his light heavyweight and his heavyweight takedown defense was. So, at the end of the day, I think Jared Cannonier is going to be the most ground game adept fighter that's what adept? Inept? No, adept. Yeah, he's going to be well versed on the ground. You look at the guys that Derrick Brunson has beat recently, and their ground game, we know that they've all been suspect. The best of them has been Edmund Shabazian, who's not known for his ground game at all. Kevin Holland has to go to Hendrickson to learn grappling after this, and Darren Till was missing an MCL. So, you look at these three guys, that's not the best record for a guy who's going to go in there and out wrestle the guy who's been wrestling at heavyweight. I think that's going to be a tough night out, and I think Jared Cannonier is obviously better on the feet. So anywhere Derrick Brunson goes, he's going to have himself a tough time. Maybe that's why he doesn't see himself getting past Jared Cannonier, and that's why he's like, I'm going to fight twice, because if he, like you're saying, if he had a shot at the championship or at the championship, if he had a shot at the belt, like why would he, like if he beats Jared Cannonier, he has a very legitimate claim to be fighting for the belt next. So he's telling Dana that if he wins this fight, right, then he'll only have one more fight, and then that'll be for the belt, and then he'll walk away because Dana White wants that. So
Nobody wants that.
Does he just not care? Does he, or is this him symbolizing that maybe he thinks he's going to lose to Jared Cannonier? Either way, I don't like it. I'm going with Jared Cannonier. I think he's going to finish him on the ground, or he's going to finish him on the feet standing. I don't think he's going to sub him. And I think ultimately, Derrick Brunson, like for the reason we were talking about, maybe a mixed mindset. Yeah, I think Jared Cannonier goes out and makes a statement, and he finishes Blonde Brunson.
Yeah, that statement at the scrum really speaks volumes. One more after this one, and I'm out. Okay, buddy. Even if he does win, they're not going to give him a title shot just for saying that. So next up, we've got Derrick Lewis versus Tai Shoey-vasa. I know.
Tuivasa.
Yes, Shoey-vasa, correct. Listen, I've got two things going, and I've said this numerous times. You know, I've got my brain pulling me in one direction. I've got my heart pulling me another. And this is going to be one of the ones where I follow what my heart is telling me, right? Like my brain is absolutely telling me that Derrick Lewis is just way too strong, way too powerful, way too good of a boxer for Tuivasa. And ultimately, he's going to catch him with one on the chin, very much like he did Chris Daukaus, very much like he has many people throughout the years, you know, like the best knockout artist in the history of UFC, like he is. That's what my brain is telling me. But my heart is telling me that Tuivasa, another one of the most entertaining men in history of the UFC. So much fun to watch. Everybody really just watches him at this point for his post-fight celebration with the Nelk boys. You know, I'd like to think that there's a chance that he pulls this one out. I think he has maybe an advantage with speed versus Derrick Lewis. He definitely doesn't have the power advantage here. Maybe he can sneak a few in and, you know, do damage with volume over time like Cyril Gane did to Derrick Lewis when they fought, but Tuivasa is not Cyril Gane. But just to be a little bit contrarian, I'm going to roll with Tuivasa here and pray for that Shoey. What do you got?
Where's Derrick Lewis from?
It's from Houston, and they're fighting in Houston.
Where's the fight at?
It's in Houston, but hey, listen, he lost.
Last time he was in Houston, what happened?
He was knocked out by Cyril Gane.
And what was his excuse? His reason?
He was in Houston.
He's like, I let the pressure get to me. He's not going to disappoint Houston again. I rest my case.
All right. Well, we'll see. You know, I'd like him to walk.
I mean, listen. Tai Tuivasa in that fight with what's his name?
Augusto Sakai.
Before that.
2 fights ago. Let's see. Really deep and diving deep back in my. Greg Hardy.
Yeah. He got hit by Greg Hardy, and like Greg Hardy landed a shot on him in those first exchanges. Like, dude, that shot from Derrick Lewis puts you away.
Yeah, absolutely true.
You know, Tai Tuivasa definitely leaves himself open. If you're comparing power for power, I think Derrick Lewis can take a lot more of Tai Tuivasa shots than Tuivasa can take Tai Shoey-vasa can take of Derrick Lewis's. So, yeah, I'm going Derrick Lewis, the Black Beast. He ain't disappointed in Houston twice.
No, I don't think so. But maybe that pressure does get to him again. Would like to, you know, hear the pop when he walks out to Jim Jones into that packed, what is that? That's not the T-Mobile Arena. Is that the Toyota Center? I can't remember exactly. The Honda Center. Gotta find that real quick.
It just says Houston. I wish it said where.
It's at the Toyota Center. Yep. In Houston, Texas. So, you know, maybe that pressure could get to Derrick Lewis again a second time. Potentially not. You know, it's also not as high pressure of a fight, right? It's not for the heavyweight championship belt. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm still rolling with Tai. I just really want to see that Shoey. I don't want to see him get slept. I don't want to see Derrick Lewis get slept either. But somebody's going to sleep in this fight.
I fucking hope so. You imagine if it goes to decision, that'll be such like blue balls.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those fights that for the first 30 seconds is, oh, whoa, oh my God. And then somebody is just going to be asleep. That's how it's going to go. I mean, I would say.
If it gets into the second round, I get concerned.
Yeah. I think the over under is going to be set at 1.5, and it's probably going to be minus 300 for the under in this one, just because they can't set the over under any lower than that. If it's minus 300, just throw it in your parlay and take it because that's a lock. So next up, we've got the main event, and this one is a little bit controversial in my opinion recently. A lot of steroid accusations coming at the current middleweight champ, and then you've got Robert Whittaker, who, he is the former middleweight champ. I am not really as conflicted as I thought I was going to be coming into this one a few weeks ago or months ago when this was announced, but I'm rolling with Izzy in this one. His big old boob and everything, because at the end of the day, Izzy is just smarter, faster. And that's what it comes down to for him. And Robert Whittaker is very strong. He's got a lot of power. He's no dummy either, but Izzy is just that much smarter than him. And, I think that if Robert Whittaker were to win it, it would have to be, his patented 1-2 head kick combo, somehow setting it up where he catches Izzy trying to evade the punches, catches him with the kick and lands it directly on the off button. Other than that, I see Izzy being able to grind it out for 5 rounds, do just enough in terms of striking, landing enough shots, dodging enough, more so dodging than blocking, and, just pulling out the W by decision over Robert Whittaker. If I were to take each guy by a method, it would be Izzy by decision, Robert Whittaker by KO, TKO. But I just see so many more, I see a longer 25-minute round fight going in Izzy's favor in this one, and I don't really see Robert Whittaker being able to set up that knockout, like I said. So rolling with Izzy by decision here. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't think there's a way that Rob is going to trick Izzy. I mean, Izzy, he's on steroids, right? You say steroid and this I like Izzy, man. Like I'm a fan of his. But like, yeah, that Gano thing is suspicious as hell, and he blamed it on like weed. Like no way, right?
Yeah, I know plenty of guys that smoked weed and didn't grow a weird tip.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And then people were like, oh, it disappeared, when he fought Jan. Yeah, it's because he had more weight on. It only will be visible when you are a low body fat. So like, yeah, I guarantee you watch on Friday and he weighs in and he's going to have it, right? Because there's no way to get rid of it other than, surgery. So although if he doesn't have it, that will be quite interesting. But, all signs point to that he will. But so that notwithstanding, he's still a phenomenal athlete, and he's phenomenal at what he does, which is stay on the feet and fight on the feet. He's phenomenal at mixing up his styles. That's why he's a style bender, his karate to his kickboxing to, his Muay Thai. It's just all very good. And, when he mixes in those long shots and keeping distance and range and, just being so technical. And that's really what Robert Whittaker has such a problem with, right? Is an issue with the technical fighters. Like when he fought Darren Till, yes, it was a close fight, and he did eke out the win, but he had a problem with him, had a problem with Adesanya. When he fought Jared Cannonier, was able to go to a close decision with Robert Whittaker, and then like I think Izzy is a much better striker than Jared Cannonier is. So, I think there's definitely been good wins, and Robert Whittaker has shown that he is the second best guy in the middleweight division. But when you talk about stylistic matchups, I don't think Robert is going to be able to get and hold Israel Adesanya down at 185 pounds. And because not very many people, if anybody, has been able to, right? Marvin Vettori couldn't. He popped right back up. There was very minimal ground game in that fight. Yeah, he lost to Jan, but Jan was multiple, tens of pounds heavier, dozens of pounds heavier. That's a lot. Costa was nothing. Romero, that stayed on the feet. Romero could have used the wrestling. That would have been interesting to tell, but nothing. And obviously, we don't have in the last Whittaker fight. So at the end of the day, I just think at 185 pounds, Israel Adesanya is that guy.
Yeah, I do want to be clear too. I'm not an Izzy fan.
I am.
I know you are. Over the past couple of months, actually, it started back when he fought Jan Blachowicz, because I'm a big Jan Blachowicz fan. But, and even more so recently with the way that he's been, the weed excuse with the tit and saying that he was bored as he was fighting Jan Blachowicz, who was just dominating him for the last 3 rounds of that fight. And, his attitude, it's entertaining for sure, but he flexes that attitude in moments when he doesn't really need to or deserve to. And sure, you're the champion. But I don't know. The whole facade is just getting a little bit annoying to me. One thing that kind of, just storyline aspect for storyline's sake, that kind of makes me think that Rob could win this one, and it's more so, like universal poetic justice, is that Izzy just signed a new deal that makes him the second highest paid athlete in combat sports, which is absurd. But, I think that it would be pretty just ironic, and the universe just being like, haha, if Robert Whittaker knocked Izzy out after that deal is signed. So, like I said, I'm rolling with Izzy, but I am personally going to stake a little bit on Rob Whittaker by knockout just because the universe works in mysterious ways. And I think it would be pretty funny to see Dana White's face after giving Izzy all that money and then seeing him get put to sleep by a guy that everybody is counting out. And we've had a few guys, especially over last year, that everybody was counting out. Glover Teixeira, to name one. There's a lot of guys that people have just been sleeping on that have come out with some pretty crazy W's. So, crazier things have happened in the UFC. Who knows? I mean, a Robert Whittaker win really isn't that crazy when you think about it. So it could
I'm
happen.
right there with you, dude. All the signs, right? Like all of the your Murphy's rule and your superstitious signs are all pointing to Robert Whittaker winning. With Izzy signing that big old deal and trying to talk shit to Rob, who's just the consummate nice good dude. All the signs point to Rob. So
yeah, Izzy's like, I don't like this guy, and Rob's like, hey, maybe if we weren't in this line of work, we'd be friends. Like he's just a nice dude. But with all that being said, how about we run down our picks one last time before we exit the episode? Go for it, Tom.
So I got Ronnie Lawrence over Mana Martinez. I have Alex Perez over Matt Schnell by finish. Casey O'Neill over Roxanne Modafferi. I have that one going to decision. Andrei Arlovski over Jared Vanderaa. I have Bobby Green over Nasrat Haqparast by decision. I have Kyler Phillips over Marcelo Rojo by finish. I think that one's going to end in TKO or a KO. I have Jared Cannonier over Derrick Brunson. I think that one could end in a TKO or a KO. And then I'm going to go Derrick Lewis over Tai Shoey-vasa. I think that one is going to end in a TKO or a KO. I'm going to go Israel Adesanya over Robert Whittaker. And I think that one is going to end in decision.
Yeah, I've got Casey O'Neill by decision. I've got Andrei Arlovski by decision. I've got Bobby Green by decision. I've got Kyler Phillips. I think that one could come one of three ways. I've got Jared Cannonier. I've got Tai Shoey-vasa. And I've got Israel Adesanya straight up, but like I said before, staking a little bit on Robert Whittaker by knockout.
Also, I think I'm doing Kyler by decision. Sorry, Kyler by decision.
Yeah, that one I'm a little bit torn on the method. But guys, if you've stuck around this long, really appreciate you watching. Just make sure, do what we ask, please. Like, subscribe, comment down below what you think is going to happen. Don't just take our word for it. Do your due diligence. Be responsible. Be smart this weekend. And have a safe weekend as well. It's the Super Bowl. Don't drink and drive. So thank you. Appreciate you sticking around.